This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. Here's your host, Cory Tusick.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. On this week's episode, I talked to Scott and Mallory Sibley. Scott and Mallory made the game SHAmory, like memory, but obviously with the SHA 256 reference in there. And so they made a card for kids. Wow, I'll sound like a moron. They made a card for kids. They made a card game for kids. It's, helps explain Bitcoin to them. And then they also made a book called Goodnight Bitcoin. And, they're really focused on educating the younger generation on Bitcoin. So I thought I'd have them on the show, and we're hoping to maybe do something together with them for Movies Plus, which would be awesome. And so I definitely hope you guys check them out. I'll put in their links and everything to follow them in the show notes. And this episode is brought to you by, when I find it, that was a bad intro for this new ad read. Need Bitcoin support? Book a one-on-one video call with a pro on Coinbeast Connect. Ask questions about mining, self-custody, multi-sig, how to run a full node, how to set up the Lightning Network, how to accept Bitcoin payments. Simply go to coinbeast.com, select a pro, and find a time when you're available. It's that simple. Learning about Bitcoin has never been easier. And it's also brought to you by Movies Plus. You can check out my streaming platform, Movies Plus. Go to mymoviesplus.com or go to the App Store and search Movies Plus, and you'll find it on any of the streaming devices and phones, tablets, yada yada yada. So check it out. You can get a free 30. This again, I'm screwing up. A 30-day trial. I did that last time, I think. A free 30-day trial. There we go. Cory put words together. Congratulations. A free 30-day trial, and check it out. Let me know what you guys think. We're adding new content all the time, and hopefully someday Scott and Mallory will work with me, and we'll be able to make a SHAmory cartoon on Movies Plus. And I think that'd be awesome. So that way we can have all of our kids watching cartoons that are about Bitcoin. Wouldn't that be great? So if you want to follow me, it's at Cory_Tusick. The show handle is at Bitcoin Simply. And the email for the show, if you want to email with questions, go ahead, because I might do more of those like rips where I'm just talking, because I've had a lot on my mind lately. So if you guys have questions, it could literally be the stupidest question. It could be like a question about like life, dating advice, groceries, whatever. I don't know. I'll take any question and I'll come up with a really, really dumb response to it. And probably give you terrible advice. But yeah, so email me questions, anything like that, suggestions on who you'd like to see on the show. And we'll go from there. But the email is bitcoinmadesimplepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks. So, but right before we were recording, we were talking about where Mallory is from, Ohio. So does that mean then are you a Cleveland Browns fan? All the like non-US listeners are probably so sick of every time I talk about American football, because they were like, "Oh bloody hell, get on to it, get to the."
Well, this would be a fast conversation then. I'm actually not much of a football fan, but if I was, then I guess I would identify with the Cleveland Browns, but they're a tough team to identify with because they're not very good.
Yeah, because they're terrible.
Yeah. Exactly.
I hear you.
We were Charger fans before the move to LA, and now we hope they lose every game they play. So
I still can't believe they left there. I don't actually mentally consider them an LA team, because the Rams were from LA originally, or at one point. I don't know if they're originally from there, but they like everybody knew them as the LA Rams until the early 90s. They moved to St. Louis. So it's like an easy fix. And then all of a sudden the Chargers are like, "Hey, we'll come too." And I was like, what? Like, it's just, it's a shame. I feel bad for the people of San Diego. Yes, your baseball team is doing good now, though.
Yes. So we have big Padre fans. Love taking our daughter down there.
Yeah, season tickets.
So
no way.
Actually, the first, let's see, I guess the third or fourth name she said was Tatis.
Oh, nice.
She knows her favorite player. We were actually just there last weekend. They turned the stadium into a Christmas Wonderland type thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Down
I
there.
love that stadium.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever been to PNC Park in Pittsburgh?
We haven't.
Oh, you guys will have to come out. We'll have to exchange like trips and go to each other's baseball stadiums because
Exactly.
yeah, PNC Park. I mean, the baseball team hasn't been much to speak of for years, but it's hands down the most beautiful view in baseball because the city is just right behind it. But I love in San Diego the box seats that are like apartments in the outfield, like right in left field. That's so cool.
In the Western Meadow building.
Yeah. Is that are those suites there?
Building. Was that?
Oh, that's a building. Like that's not part of the stadium.
No, it's a historic building. So they weren't able to knock it down. So they renovated it to code, whatever they had to keep, up there. So, and then it's mostly suites. The bottom level is the team store. And then there's a small area where you're kind of like on the field where you can watch behind the fence. And then the top is the like bleacher type seats, similar to maybe the outside of Wrigley Field type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's the left field. The corner of the building is the left field foul pole.
Okay. And so it's part of the stadium then. It's not like those Wrigley Field ones where it's across the street.
100% inside the stadium. So when you're inside, you go up, the escalator inside the building or whatever. But yeah, it's been I have no idea how old the building is, but it's something they couldn't get rid of and had planned to build it in there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So anyways, outside of the sports, because I could talk about sports all day. I could talk about baseball all day.
So could I, but we lose Mallory.
This will just go on to be a sport podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Mallory will be like all of a sudden, like, you know what? I got something to do. I gotta run. So you guys, you have a young one, right?
We do.
And how's that going? Because I have two of them myself.
So, congrats. We love it. Yeah, she's 2 years old, 2.5 now. 2.5. Her name is Charlotte. And she just, I mean, it's fun, but it also just keeps your life so interesting, right? Toddlers in particular, full of energy, full of opinions.
Yeah. Our younger, our second is he's 2 in like 2 months. He was born October 2019. And he just we're moving right now, so we have like bubble wrap everywhere upstairs. And I came up at one point, and he was just like dancing on it and like popping all the bubbles. And it's like, oh, the life of a toddler.
Yeah. He's almost at a rave.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Turn down the lights, and you would have been like a little rave for him.
Just get the music going. So let's get into your guys' backgrounds, because I'm sure you've explained it many times before on different podcasts, but you guys have the SHAmory game, and then we'll also get into Goodnight Bitcoin.
Yep.
So how did you guys make the transition into becoming Bitcoiners? And I'm really curious about Mallory's story, because my wife is like, go ahead, do the whole Bitcoin thing. And like, I don't care if we're all in, like, I trust you, but I want her to like get it with me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, come on. And she's like, I can't, I know, I don't want to. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So my Bitcoin story probably started when we created what now is known to be SHAmory. But Scott started learning about Bitcoin and briefly talking to me about it in about 2017. And I would say it would be like over dinner or like at night when we're watching TV, he'd start bringing it up. But maybe similar to your wife, I actually wasn't very interested in it. So I kind of entertained, a little conversation, but it wasn't jumping out at me. We started putting more and more money into it, and then I started paying attention. But even then, I wasn't like all in like I am now. But what caught my attention, and I think what made me do a bit of a pivot, was this idea of us being all into something and teaching our daughter about it, but there's nothing on the market to do that. So when Scott said like, hey, if we're all into Bitcoin, we need to start teaching our daughter about it. Our kind of parenting philosophy is that we teach our daughter, adult topics. We believe that she's probably more capable of learning than people give toddlers credit for.
Oh yeah.
So in a very, simple form, we started talking to her about Bitcoin and about money and about freedom. And I realized there's nothing on the market. So from a little bit of research, that's kind of where it started. Just the idea of teaching families and kids about Bitcoin, and us being the two that is a little bit like paving the way, I guess. There's some other things out there, but only a little bit.
Yeah. And so you wanted to, so that's a good way to get, maybe I should get her into the game. That would get my wife.
Yeah, try that. You know, honestly, when we're at these meetups, so once we created the game, right, I'll flash forward. Now we've been going to meetups, we're going to conferences, I'm meeting with people, you know, to do podcasts, we're talking with people online, and the excitement and like the level of interest is all there. So maybe if you can grasp her attention a little bit and like teach her the network. One of the things that I love about Bitcoin is how friendly and energized everyone is about it. I think it's hard to find that type of group anywhere else. So between the game and maybe branching her out into other people, maybe that gets her. I don't know.
Yeah.
It got me at least.
Yeah. So now, and then Scott, so your background, you were in finance, right?
Yeah, before. So I have a degree in accounting. So I did that for 3 or 4 years after graduating from college in the mid 2000s. And then for the past 13 years, I've been in the ed tech side of, so education technology side of things at a company here in San Diego. Really kind of, I view Bitcoin as kind of a combination of both those things. You know, the finance audit side of things, we are getting verifiability and trust and understanding the importance of those sides, combined with the past 13 years of being in the education space, along with the fact that between both of us, honestly, we have, between our parents, cousins, aunts, uncles, we have a bunch of teachers in the family. So just growing around kind of that education environment from a young age kind of played into it as well. So that's kind of where it all culminated in what is now SHAmory and kind of my Bitcoin journey for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Then I've got a couple of teachers in my family. I always give them a hard time and say like, oh man, like it's such a tough job because they have a 3-month paid vacation.
Yes.
I mean, like holidays, you know, off, random little weekdays off for no reason. The day's over at 2:45. Like, whoa, I don't know how you guys do it. Like, it's like, oh man, that's brutal. I say it with a hint of, I say it with a hint of truth, and but it drives my sister and brother nuts whenever I go on and on about it. So okay, so you get into hold on, what was the next thing I wanted to pick on? It was, so you go from finance, you start going into education. That's a little bit of a switch. Like you said, Bitcoin is kind of the combination of both, but that's a pretty significant switch.
Yeah. And I guess part of it was even when I was in college, going through kind of the accounting program, getting my CPA, I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do forever, but I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. But other than just getting a straight business degree, I recognized the fact that, especially at the time, so in mid 2000s, that's when it was Enron and a lot of accounting related scandals. So the job market in the field was pretty good. I mean, I had a job before even graduating, is how the accounting firms were working it. So it was like, okay, you can kind of set yourself above the rest of just the business class of people, have income when you're leaving college, be able to kind of get the benefits of everything else. And so that's really what my purpose for going into accounting was. And then quickly realizing that my senses were correct. Like it wasn't what I wanted to do forever. And knowing that, I have a creative side to me that I want to be able to do, which is able to do through the education technology side and my roles there. And then now through the SHAmory, obviously, is even more creative and fun being able to control it myself. But that's really how it kind of took shape.
Mm-hmm. And so when you had said, when we talked, because people don't know, but we had a business call before this, not today, but like a month ago. And you said you were just about to step out and go full time into SHAmory and everything. Is that what you did?
Yeah. So on the beginning of January will be my last day at my full time job. So come 2022, I'll be able to focus on SHAmory full time. And be able to, see where it can all grow, whether it's, discussions like you're alluding to with yourself or other people, or just growing the brand in other ways. That, the past year and a half has let us know that there's something there. What it is, we still don't know exactly what that'll turn into, but we want to be able to have the freedom to pursue what that turns out to be, at least over the next 12 months and take it from there come the following year.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you had that moment yet though now where like you guys are stepping out into for example, I was talking to, we just bought our new house the other day. I was meeting one of the neighbors, and it was just like, I had just had like 2 business calls, and like my head was like in the clouds, and we're overextended because we're paying 2 mortgages at the time. You know what I mean? Like we're just like, like where you just start feel like you're suffocating. And, and so I was sitting there thinking, and I was like talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, I want to, get to be like an entrepreneur." And I was like, "Yeah, we should talk about that as we become neighbors." And I said, like, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I just think back to the old days of a regular paycheck, and I'm like, man, oh man, those were great. So have you started to like have that like shortness of breath yet, either of you, where you're just like,
is that what you feel like every day? I mean, you have a toddler. I think that we constantly feel like that.
I feel like you're drowning
or chasing her around the house. I'm always feeling a bit short of breath.
No, but not that sense of scary, yet more sense of excitement. Obviously, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we have a plan in place to be able to live our life, over the next 12 months, and be able to not have to worry about, putting food on the table and that sort of thing. So that's the benefit of, goes back to the age-old story, for 4 years being able to be in the Bitcoin space, seeing that start to play out, is being able to allow us to do this sort of thing. So without that dedication for 4 years, I wouldn't be able to leave my job. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah. So semi-retired via Bitcoin.
Yes, exactly. Putting the passion to work.
Yeah. Now, Mallory, what's it like, sitting there and going, because the women are, I'm not trying to like generalize genders, but women are more practical. And I always find that because like I'll come in with all these dreams and ideas, and I always joke and say that my wife is like Scarface with like a machine gun and just shoots holes through my ideas, like just strafing like bullet holes all through my ideas. And I'm like, well, never mind, that was a terrible idea. I don't know why I thought of that. So I went through that whenever I told her like, hey, I want to leave normie world, and like this was 7 years ago, and start something, and then she was like, I told her the idea. She, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, what? So like, so how was it for you? Were you the one pushing Scott, or did you have to kind of like shoot holes through the ideas, and then he patched it up and said, here's how we'll do this?
I like the question. It seemed like a pretty natural conversation. I think before we probably even had the conversation, we were both thinking it in our mind, only because when we started SHAmory, the card game, neither one of us had any idea what would come of it, right? We knew it was a product. We thought it was good. The few people we talked to in the Bitcoin space thought that it was valid and that there was a future for it. But when you put it out to market, you really kind of like cross your fingers and hope what happens. But the sales started trickling in and the feedback started coming in. And then we went to the Bitcoin conference out in Miami. And that's where we started meeting with both of us started meeting with like much larger companies, mining companies, as well as like the everyday aunts, uncles buying it for people. And we went back to the hotel and we were talking about it and talking about the potential. And, I think when we left that conference, although we hadn't sat down to talk about Scott quitting his job, we both thought, at least I'm going to speak and say that at that point, I was kind of in my mind thinking, well, one of us should run full time with this and see what happens. If you don't ever try, how will you know? But we got the feedback then that it was going to happen. And I would say probably about quickly after that, I don't know who proposed the idea first, but when we started talking about it, we were both on the same page about that.
Yeah. But Miami, the conference in Miami was a big tipping point for us in a lot of avenues, just being able to, be in front of people, like Mallory said, hear their feedback, whether it was people coming over and saying, oh, I already have your game. And there's no book the book was not out yet. I already have the game. I love playing with my kids or with my friends or whatever, or new people coming over and learning about it. Just it let us really have that confidence to say, okay, there's legs here.
There's something going.
Yeah.
And it's something different and unique that really isn't out there outside of a few other things that are awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what, honestly, just putting my entrepreneur hat on, that's what is missing with a lot of people. They think, oh, just make something, and it'll be similar to something else, and why wouldn't people pay for it, And it's like, no, you got to have that differentiator. You got to be something unique. So that's awesome that you guys capitalized on that. So explain to people that haven't seen it before how the game works.
Yeah.
Sure. Let me take it.
Sure, go for it.
So it's literally a card game. One of the easy analogies is if you've played the game of memory, then you can play SHAmory. So you don't need to know anything about Bitcoin going into it. So really, for those that don't know anything about Bitcoin mining, full disclosure, we've never mined Bitcoin ourselves, not our expertise. But as we started diving down the rabbit hole, one thing that popped into the head was, boil things down as simple as possible. The process of mining is comprised of two key components. There's a target that is set, and then there's a bunch of computers or ASICs that are trying to find the correct nonce to be able to hash and create and match that target. So once we got that concept in place, we said, it's just like flipping over cards, playing memory. You're competing to be able to find those matches down the line. So essentially, the game set up where you lay down 11 nonce cards. All of them have fun little Bitcoin characters on them, so they're easy to recognize. Kids like them, adults like them. And then you flip over one top target card, and you're going to take turns rolling a dice, and assuming it's your turn to play, flip over one of those nonces, and you're trying to match that target. But you want to remember where that one card was, even if you didn't match, so that next time around, when that first target gets flipped over, you can find that match. So instead of a computer using their electrical energy to be able to mine the blockchain, you're using your mental energy to remember where those nonces are. And then ultimately create those match. You're going to mine a block. So there's cards that are called blocks. You're trying to get from the Genesis block all the way to the block out of 10. Assuming that happens, every time you mine a block, you get a reward. The player at the end of the game with the most rewards wins. But it's also collaborative in the sense that the chain can get attacked. And so one thing that we hear over and over again is how, especially parents with their kids, they say, okay, the first time I sat down with my kids, they thought it was really 100% individual. But then they started to realize, no, we're actually all working together to protect the blockchain, because if the chain gets attacked, the game's over for everybody. So it doesn't matter if I had all the rewards and my sister had zero, because, at the end of the day, we weren't successful. Something happened. And so it's those little life lessons, like I know came up on our conversation last time around the different things that Bitcoin teaches that come about through the game as well.
And how does the chain get attacked?
So in our case, there's a dice that's rolled by each player. And so 5 of the sides let you mine or select one of those nonces. And one of the sides is a attack character. So you have to place a card next to your blockchain. So if those attack cards ever get longer than the blockchain, game over.
That's pretty unique idea, and a great way that I honestly probably a lot of us grown-ups could learn, like, oh, okay, this is how this works. Because mining, even I'm trying to dip my toes into it, and it's just like, whoa, like holy cow,
So,
like understanding it,
Some of the biggest compliments we've ever gotten, besides hearing from parents and things of that nature, is the very first Bitcoin meetup we were at out here in Southern California. Somebody from, I'll leave them nameless for anonymity, from one of the public mining companies was there. And he came over and he was watching us do a demo. There's 2 little girls playing at the table. And he said, wait a minute, is this teaching about Bitcoin mining? And they're like, oh yeah, this is how it's played. He's like, oh my God, like this is the most simple and elegant way I've ever seen the mining process explained. I've never seen it as simple and fun and intuitive like that. And so we heard similar things in Miami from other mining people, where just hearing people in the space react to it, they're the experts, that's not us, let us know that, okay, that simple nature and the fun way really, is important.
Yeah. And so that then is that what spawned the book?
Yes and no.
Yeah, yes and no.
The game is really kind of, so we launched the game in June of 2020, so about a year and a half ago. And then I'd say about halfway through, once we realized, okay, people are reacting positively to this. What else can we build around the space? The game is great for kind of ages 4 through adults. Having a 2-year-old ourselves, we wanted to be able to close the gap for that toddler infant audience. So that's where the idea, I think we had read one too many Goodnight Moon, Goodnight Baseball, Goodnight Soccer, as I'm sure you know, books. There was like, okay, let's make a fun, book. So that's where Goodnight Bitcoin was really spurned, something that our daughter could have, immediately.
Yeah.
I have to. Do you guys get to the point where you have to make up stuff? I don't know if she'd be old enough for that yet. Where you're like, because my oldest will say like, it's like, can you make it a funny version? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you want me to make? And he's like, so this is like totally boy through and through. I'll just be like, can you make it a poop version? And I'm like, so like he just literally wants me to like I swap out certain words on each page and make it poop instead of the word, and he just dies. And it's actually sometimes it just works out. Like, I'm just like reading along, and most of the time it doesn't really make sense. And then there's one time or two times where it'll just like it sounds hilarious, and like we both start cracking up. So but yeah, you read the same book.
Goodnight Bitcoin version too.
Yeah. But like
faces.
You end up, reading the same books over and over and over again. And so this gives you a refreshing, plus if you're the one that created it too, you're like, hey, I like
we purposely put some little Easter eggs in the book for her. So there's two of her favorite stuffed animals are sitting on a bed. There's a baseball bat and a baseball on the floor in one of the rooms, going back to the Padres Tatis comments. There's a coffee on a table that she's always talking about Mallory drinking coffee and it being hot. There's a slide. There's some of the monsters are going down a slide. So we purposely weaved in some elements of her interest from when she, I guess at the time she was not even 2 yet when we started creating it, from her life, that just make it personal to her as she grows up.
Mm-hmm. But it does a good job telling the story of sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to hear you.
Oh, I was going to say, the nice thing about it is because kids want to read the same thing over and over and over again. It does a nice job telling the story of two little friendly monsters named Hal and Satoshi, who go on to create a larger form of money we then call it Bitcoin. And they work with their friends all across the globe to keep the network running. So it's a cute story that gives real facts. And that's always nice as parents to read something factual and enjoyable. And then if you want to, you can take it a step further. And you could, orange pill your friends and family with it. But my mom was babysitting the other night doing that whole nighttime routine where you pick out like 3 books that then end to like 5 books. And she was reading it. And we've tried to talk to my mom about Bitcoin. She doesn't have much of an interest, but she read it, my daughter went to sleep, and then we came home that night, and then she started questioning us about the book. And it was the first time ever that my mom had started the conversation as opposed to us starting the conversation. Yep. So I was like, well, there we go. It's working 2 different ways.
Yep. That's awesome. And it's funny how you said the 3 books turn into 5. Like any parent knows that. Did you ever notice that they say they'll say it's a book of 5-minute stories? Those stories are not 5 minutes long. Those are like 12 minutes long. Like they take forever.
Yeah.
There are definitely some long ones in that pile over there.
Yes.
But she has no shortage of books. Her current obsession is Abby from Sesame Street. Any book with Abby in it is
Abby Cadabby.
Yep. Yeah. Loves her because she flies.
And how about have you guys watched the show Bluey?
No.
It's on Disney Plus, and my kids just started watching it, and even like the 6-year-old likes it. But it's really good for parents because it like takes like a pretty like honest approach. It's not like Daniel Tiger, where like I always sit there and I'm like, I want to see the day that like Dad Tiger like snaps, and it's like, you know what, Daniel, like I make these clocks all day long. I go to work, I sit there, nobody buys these clocks because we live in this town. It's a fairyland, and there's nobody buying anything. Baker Acre only wants so many watches to get me bread, so I got to go find another way to make money. But it's pretty funny. You guys should check it out because there's like it was like one of those things I just caught a glimpse of it, and like the one kid had to like their dogs, and the one had to like go to the bathroom really bad, and the only place like their food was getting eaten by pigeons on a table outside. The other one was playing with like a water faucet that was like making water go everywhere, and the other one's like, Dad, I gotta go, and like So he's like sitting there and he's like, here, go in this bush. And he's like holding the dog to like pee in the bush. And like right whenever it's about, he's like, okay, go ahead, pee now. And she just goes, Daddy, why is everything made of atoms? And like, it's just like, I get like, as parents, you just have those things. Like I thought I had my son asleep the other night. I was like, okay, it's safe to walk out. And he just goes, Daddy, what's after 199? Oh, 200. Okay, yeah, not ready for bed yet. So, so yeah, the parenting, I feel like we need to have like a parents corner for the Bitcoin conference.
Yep.
Yes.
And like where we can bring the kids and like, we can all sit there because until you're a parent, you don't get it. I thought I understood, but no.
Yep. No, it's definitely a different world that 2+ years ago we didn't know about either.
Yeah, no.
It's fun.
Currently,
I
Charlotte,
love it.
she's very excited for Christmas, as I'm sure a lot of, or different holidays, whatever it is that you celebrate. And Santa is coming, but every time we go to ask her, like, oh, what does Santa want to bring you? She changes the list. So I'm like, you're making
Anna's having a tough time.
I know. I'm like, well, I hope that Santa can keep up with this ever-changing list,
I know. My son said, he's like, you're lucky that I asked Santa for the expensive stuff. Yeah, you're right. Yep. You are right. I told my parents the same thing. Like I asked Santa for a PlayStation and, I didn't ask mom and dad for that. I wouldn't burden them with that, they can get me the clothes and all that kind of stuff. So whenever you guys get into making these characters, what inspired you talk about the background, what inspired the little characters in the book?
Well, this is where I shot down Scott's dreams. I'll say the first couple versions of the
I'm glad to hear it happens.
Exactly. So the first couple of versions of the card game were a little bit more data-based, I would say.
Intricate, yeah.
Number focused, intricate. And instead of the characters matching, there was like sequences almost. Yeah,
there's actual, if you're thinking about the components of a block or of a nonce, so there's a hash, or there was a timestamp, or like trying to actually make it feel like a block.
Mm-hmm.
So go on.
So we started playing with that. Really hard to remember, several numbers.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is where I was like, no, we cannot move forward with a card game that is this complicated and actually not very good. So there were a lot of iterations of SHAmory before it came down, and some of them we equally shot down. Some of them I shot down. But once we realized that in order to really like be engaged and remember the nonce and the target, they would need to be like bright, colorful things that both kids and adult would find interesting. And of course, we wanted to wiggle in different Bitcoin components. So that's when we started working with an artist who we've been thrilled with, who has done the cards and actually the book now. But one of the other reasons that we love it is that the monsters are good across languages because they're not words, right? And they're all different colors, and anybody can identify with them living anywhere in the world, which is like another great Bitcoin thing. So
yep, no, exactly. That was perfect summary. And just people seem to like them. Well, actually really seem to love them, whether it's kids or adults. They're not too childish, not too adultish. Mm-hmm. Like Mallory said, they're super bright and fun. And so glad we kind of went down that path with them.
Well, I guess we got to get plush dolls.
We
looked into that. Yeah.
I'm sure it's expensive
for a little while.
Get them going.
Yeah, we got dolls. We have there's somebody who we've met through the Meetup space who does, he's part of the 3D printing space as well. So he's doing some test runs of 3D printed versions of some of the monsters. Nice. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, they can be used in a lot of different ways. At least that's our hope.
Yeah, somebody should make an animated show.
I know. I wonder who.
I gotta.
If we only knew somebody who ran a streaming platform.
I know one that's specifically big. Like what? So we're running on a Bitcoin standard. I'm really actively trying to seek funding for our next round from Bitcoiners. I want this to be like a Bitcoiner platform, where it's like I had a hard time. It was morally like tough for me to actually ask somebody to give me their Bitcoin other than for like an investment,
Mhm.
like other than to just like hold it. Like, cause I'm like, no, it's so valuable. Why would anyone part with it? Um, but I think that might be necessary. And so there's a couple VCs that I was like DMing about it, and I was said like, hey, any Bitcoin people that are like all into. I was like, I think this needs to be a Bitcoin only platform. So if you're listening, contact us. But yeah, I just want it to be more Bitcoin oriented, and I think there's an angle there where if you have something fun like this for the kids to learn from, you don't have to beat them over the head with it, but like
Yeah.
even with that show Bluey, I was saying it's funny for the parents and the grandparents. Like my
Exactly.
parents even said, they're like, oh, did you see the grandparent episode? It was so funny because it's exactly what me and your mother go through, and it's like, so I think we could do that as adults where like you could have, adult themes on top of, the funny things that the kids laugh at.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
so I'm curious about what's the business end like of creating a game? Like where did you like, so you have the idea and everything, and then where do you go to make a game, like a board game? Like how do you get a card game? How do you get that together?
Google.
Lots
Yeah,
of Google.
Yeah, we don't have any
We had
background
zero
experience in this.
experience manufacturing a physical product. So it probably took, I would say, there's probably about altogether a year pre-SHAmory, like getting it all ready that we went through, whether it's the designing side of things, the manufacturing side of things, just kind of learning about how it happens. And so, yeah, ultimately, and then there was the pandemic, which kind of put a damper on a lot of manufacturing as well. And so, yeah, it's been a.
Oh, I think you froze.
For no reason, really.
Yeah.
So
I think you froze there for a second, right when you were saying the pandemic.
Oh, sorry.
Got it.
We was all in the middle of the pandemic, so a lot of manufacturing issues along the way, and we currently have a large shipment of books that's been stuck in customs for 4 months. So we've learned on the fly along the way. But yeah, it was a lot of Google, talking to manufacturers, getting price quotes, samples,
learning a lot about cardstock.
Yep.
More than anybody probably, unless you work in the paper industry.
Unless you're a Dunder Mifflin.
More about cardstock than anybody wants to know about it. So.
And the book was a little easier. One, because we had gone through the process before, yeah. And then two, it was just a single item. But the game is a little tricky manufacturing because it's both cards and dice. And the dice is also custom. So it's not like a standard, dot dice or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the card manufacturers don't do custom dices. And then we really didn't want to have a large packaging. So if you look at a lot of standard card dice packaging, it could be rather bulky and obviously higher shipping costs. So we actually have one manufacturer for the dice who then sends the dice to the card manufacturer. And then we have a custom sized box because the way we do it is the dice sits on top of the cards inside the box. So it's not a bigger contraption for them to send to us and then us to obviously send out everywhere, since, like we said, there's Bitcoiners around the world. So it can be pricey shipping when we're sending things off to Africa or Kenya or you name it, India. It's been everywhere. So we were trying to keep the components as small as possible to make it happen as well.
So you got a crash course then in like the supply chain and
yes.
And all that stuff that you never thought you were going to, which is basically what every entrepreneur probably goes through in one shape or another.
Yeah.
And luckily, like over the summers when we were like, okay, it was honestly before we even started selling the books, the first shipment of books, we were like, we need to put another order in because at the rate things are going, if we need more, they're not going to get here until who knows when in 2022. And that's the one that's been stuck for, I think it landed in Long Beach in like October, and we placed the order in July.
For those people who, are maybe not familiar with this area, from Long Beach to San Diego, it would probably take us no longer than an hour and a half to drive there. And they've been sitting there for 4 months.
If there's no traffic.
Why don't you guys just get in like, your swim trunks and just get out there?
Just swim out there at this point, yeah.
Go get it. And so what is the
issue exactly? I mean, there's tons of talk, obviously, in the Bitcoin space about supply chain, everything breaking down. What is the issue?
I think it's probably a lot of different things. In the case of this shipment, it was two things. One, the boats are all lined up, so it takes longer for them to get onto land, and then it takes longer for them to unload everything. So that whole process just takes longer. And then we don't know the full story yet, but the carton that our books are in are with some other things that whoever's getting them needed some sort of processing by the environmental control.
It got flagged by environmental control
somehow. And so then it got sent off into secondary processing and then sat there for 2 months. So who knows? It's just a mess.
And do they just not have enough dock workers? I mean, why are boats so backed up? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Who knows? I mean, I've like you've read different things, listened to podcasts. It seems like just a combination
complete cluster
between the boats not having a place to pull in, and then not enough dock workers, and then not enough trucks to come in and pick up the stuff, and then not being able to send the cartons back in time to reship on the other end of things. So I think it's just
whenever you stop one train in the middle of everything, the rest of the car is just going to smash into it.
Exactly.
That's crazy. And it's interesting with the environmental side. I have a quick anecdote about that. So one time we were going up to Toronto for the film festival, and that's one of the only things that I could travel to for business where I could drive. And so we would drive across the border. And the one time we always got hotels. I always made sure I paid a little extra, so it was nice and comfortable for my wife and kid, and anyone else coming from the company. And the one time I said, let's do Airbnb. Come on, it's gonna be good. Airbnb was so bad. It was horrific.
Oh no.
And so I felt so bad, and I was picking up some groceries at the market there, and I bought this potted flower, and I thought this will make it look home, make it feel homey. So I did that. Oh, what a sweet thing, and then when we were driving home, we got stopped at the border because we had a piece of agriculture. And literally we were stuck at the border for 3 hours. I had done this drive so many times where we always get there and just show the passport, yeah, hey, see you later. It's almost like a toll booth at the Canadian, at the Buffalo interchange or the Canadian US border. It's so many people drive it, it's quick. And they just spotted that plan. They were like, what is that? We have to get our agriculture people on it. I was like, oh my God. And we didn't even get to keep the plant. No, they took it. They took it after 3 hours. They had to check our car. They had to everything. I mean, it was a mess. I was like, what are the flies over there gonna do something over here? I mean, now, with the pandemic, I'm like, oh, maybe they had COVID or something, and they were just bringing that across the border. Who knows? So what do you guys have planned for the future do you have other iterations of the game? Do you have other things for these characters as far as new books, anything you have on the horizon that you can announce? Or
yeah, I think one, just continuing to push the game and the book out there. Obviously, we've done the past year and a half, literally never paid anything for marketing or anything like that.
No marketing budget.
No, it's just been us in our condo here, packing boxes at the kitchen table.
Entrepreneur's life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Connecting with people. The first reason I heard about you was because I was listening to Daniel Prince's podcast when you were on there. Daniel was the first podcast we were ever on a year and a half ago. We've been on twice now. So just kind of word of mouth, that whole thing. So, but yeah, getting the book and the game out there more and more as much as possible. And then, like we alluded to, expanding things, whether it's movies or video or shows, working together with somebody like yourself. There's one of the Bitcoin gaming companies was potentially interested in doing some gaming work around the characters. So that's exciting for us. And then lastly, not least, is a lot of the work, especially since Miami, that's bubbling up is around education aspects that are surrounding our game and our book. Both here in the States with people like Isaiah Jackson, or international in El Salvador, Guatemala, Peru, Africa, South Africa, Slovakia. So there's some people across the world that are kind of building up curriculum based around the game itself.
Wow.
That we're excited about. And so we have our fingers crossed on a couple big things, hopefully in the January, February timeframe. One here in the States and one down in El Salvador. to be able to start integrating more deeply in those sorts of communities.
Wow. So how does that feel to have something that you created getting like a curriculum built around it?
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. It's kind of hard to put it into words.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just the idea of like families playing a game that was educational and even slightly introduced them to Bitcoin made me feel like, whoa. But when you're talking about, places like Guatemala or, anywhere around the world, like kids sitting in classrooms and being taught curriculum that will hopefully positively impact their future and how they have financial literacy and what their, what types of freedoms they might have to them. Like, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. And sometimes hearing the plans that these people hopefully have for this sort of thing, particularly down in something like El Salvador, and being able to support what's going on there. And, we're just along for the ride and being able to support however we can.
Do you have anything going in Paraguay? Because I just saw all that news with them. No,
we haven't spoken to anybody in Paraguay just yet, but if there's anybody out there listening, we are happy to connect.
Yeah. It's just there's just so much space for growth here, and I think you guys are so smart for getting on this. Now, do you share like have you hit any like threshold in sales that you're like, hey, this is our number we brag about? Or you don't have to give numbers if you don't want to. I'm just curious. Like,
no, we're pretty open. I mean, honestly, just getting one sale was fun the first time it came. We have a selfie picture of me and Mallory and Charlotte holding up kind of the notification on our phone of that first sale.
The very first one.
It was somebody in Canada. And actually my sister-in-law, Mallory's sister, was upset that she wasn't the first one. She didn't get to the website in time to be able to. So that just having one was fun. But on the games we sold, I think around 2,000 over the past year and a half. Games. And then on the books, like it's only been a few months. So a few hundred books over that time. And then, some of the bigger stuff planned in 2022 will hopefully, make that feel even small, even though that feels big to us. Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, even with the podcast, not that I'm like, oh, I'm this super successful podcast, but like I couldn't believe that there was like 50 people listening. Everything. I was like, what? Like that blows my mind. Like I can't believe that. Like what would anybody want? I mean, they're not listening to hear me; they're listening to hear you guys and the people that I interview. But I'm like what? That's just so bizarre that somebody actually listened, and like you were the one listener. No way. Like you were that one person. So do you have like a special like notification that makes like a cha-ching, like, or like a cash register noise whenever a sale's made?
We should. My phone's on vibrate most of the time, so it's pretty silent.
I think we both have silent phones. Yeah.
So it's just kind of a nice surprise when you look down and you see, oh, it's the WooCommerce notification.
But we send out all of the packages every night. So I guess as the orders come in and their printing labels get shipped, they then move to our kitchen table. So this is the business setup that we have going on. And then at the end of the night, I box up all of the packages and write a hand little thank you. And if my daughter's wandering around the house, she's really into stickers and she seems to think the shipping label is a sticker. So sometimes we'll let her peel it off and then stick it on the envelope. So, and then it sits at the kitchen table until the morning when you can take it to the post office. Yep.
So if the sticker's ever crooked, it's probably one that Charlotte put on there. So sorry about that for anybody who's received it.
That adds some character to it,
Exactly. No, but she has fun with it and dropping off. We say, we're taking the monsters to their new homes. That's what we tell her when we go to the post office. And then she usually gets to go to the park afterwards. And if we don't get to go to the park afterwards, it can be an issue.
Oh, yeah. And you live in San Diego, so you can go to the park on Christmas Day.
We can.
It's sunny all the time here. Yeah. Almost all the time.
Although it rained last night.
It rained last night, which is always just bizarre when it rains here. People almost don't know what to do with themselves.
Oh, yeah. It's anytime I'm in LA, there's only been a couple times I was in LA that it actually rained. It might like real quick, but it's really interesting for two reasons. One, whenever it's done raining, because there's so much smog in LA. I don't know if you guys ever saw it. When it's done raining, you can actually see. You're like, whoa, downtown's right there. Like I didn't know that because there it was just all haze before. And then the other thing was the people would like are just driving like it's a snowstorm. Like,
Oh yeah, it's terrible. One of my favorite stories when I moved here, and I just moved here from Ohio, so lots of weather variation and seasons. And I was in my first semester of college, and the class was canceled because it rained. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like a college class is canceled because it rains. You know, I mean, for in Ohio, it might rain for months. Basically, it feels like I could not believe it. So I love that.
So is that how you guys met in college, or
no? We met on eHarmony.
no way?
Yeah,
And that you know, I mean, me and my wife, we didn't meet that way, but it was like we were both maybe on the verge of trying it, like right before we met each other. But it was like taboo back then, you know. It was like, what? Like
it was in the beginning. Yeah, we met in the beginning of the eHarmony, like online
It's been around
dating.
for a little bit. It was 2013.
Yeah.
So a few years, but it definitely wasn't what it is now.
Yeah.
No, nowadays it's like everybody like that's how they meet people. It's like, oh, on a dating app. Whereas like I have this this is the funniest thing. Maybe should I share this? Oh, I'll share it. It's embarrassing.
Definitely.
So there was I had just broken up with this girl in college. Well, she broke up with me. Let's put it that way. And so I was really bummed, and I was out at the bars with my friends, went back to my room, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to sign up for free trial of eHarmony. Like it was like on ESPN, the commercial was on there. Like, there's a free trial. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I spent like 45 minutes sitting there drinking beer and filling out my profile. And then it said like generate report. And I just put it out there and I just watched it spinning, and it said, this may take a few minutes, you know, and everything. So I just sat there and let it like search and search. And it came back with 0 results. It said, you have no matches. And I was like, oh, should have probably gone to bed. Instead of getting kicked in the.
You were a little too early then.
Yeah.
We both had matches, but we were on the earlier side.
On their side, and the eHarmony ones, at least then, I'm sure now, because they do their whatever algorithms. Like the setup for that one actually
it's a long time.
It takes time. You have to go through questions and all that stuff, as you know. Whereas now, I think when you've signed up for the dating apps, it's probably just give me your email and let you in.
Yeah, swipe one way, which I think is just a shame that that's what it is. It's all swipe this way, swipe that way. That's, you know, because first of all, none of them ever put their real picture, you know, and you know if it's all image based, I mean, you're really kind of losing the plot on what marriage is supposed to be about, you know.
Fun fact.
Not that we're here to give marriage advice, but you know.
Fun fact, Mallory signed up for a year subscription and then went on a single date, and that was with me. So
oh, nice.
Only one for her.
Well, they get you know, when you might remember when you sign up, it's like, I'm throwing out these numbers that are not correct, but like $9 for a month, but then it's like, oh, like $20 for 6 months, or like $25 for a year. You know, these are very made up numbers, but it almost like, it makes you feel like, oh, I should sign up for a year. Like that makes more sense, you know, financially. And I'm sure I'll go on lots of dates. And then I went on a date like a week and a half after I signed up with you. And that was my first and last eHarmony date.
Nice.
eHarmony got a lot of money out of that, I guess.
Yeah, you really, I hope he made it up to you and added that value to like the ring whenever he proposed. And
well, then she tried to give her account to her roommate at the time.
I did.
But you can't change your name or anything. So she would have to go on dates and say, my name isn't Mallory, it's XYZ. And that didn't seem to
it
work
never
out.
went well for her.
Oh, that's so funny. And I mean, you guys seem like you just have like, if we lived in San Diego, I think me and my wife, we could hang out with you guys and let our kids play.
Oh, for sure. I think we would just drink beers and hang out. Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, you just, I don't know. I think people are just losing. I hate to go down this, like the whole swipe thing, but it's like, like like my wife's my best friend, like that's what it's supposed to be. You know, like if it's all image based, like guess what? Whenever you're in your 70s and 80s, you're going to look like a prune. Like we're all going to look like a prune, So it's just, you gotta, it's like, as Bill Burr said, because there's plastic surgery that you could do, but I don't know if you ever saw his stand up where he was like, would you rather be 50 and look 50, or be 50 and look like a 28-year-old lizard? Like, that's what they look like. So yeah, no, it's just good to see, family businesses and stuff like that. And that's awesome to hear that your daughter is basically running the company at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah, she runs the shipping department. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. So where do you store them in the house then? Do you have them like all stored all wherever?
I'm in the corner over here.
There's some under the bed.
There's a new box behind us that we rent out.
Yes, that's just sitting on the floor currently.
There's some in relatives' house storage areas. There's some in my old office at my current job. So there's
like conflict of interest.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, and
that's also the pleasure of living in San Diego and having small spaces as opposed to a large area to spread out. But we take the good with the bad. More good.
Yeah, you get the good weather. We have acres now of land. It's a little bit of culture shock for me because it's like I walked out of the house and I could hear gunshots, and where we currently live, that's a bad thing. And I was like, what? And I was like, wait a minute, I'm in the country. It's okay. This is a good thing, and dirt bikes and also it was so dark at night, so dark. And I was like kind of like freaked out a little bit. And yeah, it was yeah. So that's what I get. I get that wide open space, but it was cloudy and rainy. And is that why you left Ohio? Like you were just like, you know what, get me to sunshine and get out of here.
Get me to sunshine. I also grew up in Ohio. I grew up in a really small, very conservative town. And I think I knew from a pretty young age that I didn't necessarily identify with all of their beliefs. And I wanted a little bit more of like an open mind environment.
Yeah. Hard to find. In small town.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good to the town. I will say that. Like, I enjoyed the small neighborhood and everybody knew each other. So growing up, it was really nice because I knew all of my friends' families and everything like that. But I think even when I was like early high school, I think I probably knew that as an adult, I wanted a little bit of a bigger environment and some more opportunities. Mm-hmm. The town that I grew up in is a pretty poor, low income area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's, and really you can't go wrong with San Diego. It's like the best place.
You can't, it's hard to beat.
Yeah. I'm going to have to come out for a Padres game and when the Pirates come out.
Exactly. We'll definitely take you down there and play around at the park and go to the park and have the kids run around. That's the nice part about the stadium.
It's so kid friendly.
They have like a playground right at center field, right?
It's amazing.
Yeah, the whole grass area in the right center. So there's a giant sand pit, there's slides, swings.
So we definitely have to do that because we spend half of every Pirate game at the playground, but the playground is tucked away and not like integrated to the stadium. So like I miss half the game. Like I just I'm not that. Fortunately they're terrible, so it doesn't matter. But we'll have to
spend 95% of our time out at the park but you see in there and she has fun running around.
So before we leave, before we do a handoff for people, what would you guys say? What's one recommendation you would make to anybody that's new to the space, just getting into it, and maybe they, are afraid to get in? What would you say is the best advice you could give to a newbie? It's a tough question because there's so many things that you want to say.
You want to go?
Sure, I'll go first.
Go for it.
I kind of have two. I would say the first thing would be to go into it with an open mind. I think traditionally, we think of money in a certain way because it's what we've been taught since we were, as little as can be when we started earning allowances, some of us. So to kind of put those early thoughts aside and go into it with open mind. And then I would also say to read the white paper. Start pretty simple.
No, those are good. And I was going to say, one, it's not as scary or complex as you probably think it is going into it. And if you want to just go back to how we create the game, make it as simple as possible. Ask yourself a couple questions. One, does Bitcoin have a limited supply? Yes or no? Yes. Is that supply issuance getting more or less over the years? It's going down. So we have that going for us. And do you think the world's going to get more or less digital? assuming you think it's going to get more digital and you have something with a limited supply that's only going down, if we're just talking money and the growth of it, then what do you think is going to, I mean, that's a pretty simple analogy to go through. And then I think, because most people come in for that, money go up side of things, that's when they then can start seeing everything else going on, whether it's, education or movies and TV, or the benefits of a network that's open for anywhere in the world. I don't think most people are going to come in with those things in the back of their head. They're going to come in with, okay, how do I make money? Which is fine. I mean, I think that's human nature. But then once they understand those very basic things, if they want to kind of deep dive and go down farther, I think that's when they can start seeing everything else that's going on in the space, outside of, what the typical media articles might portray going back for a number of years around what Bitcoin is and what it isn't.
Yeah, all that FUD. We just have to steer around and duck and dive over. So where do people buy the game and the book? Where can they find you guys online? Give people a handoff where they can go.
Sure. So the website is SHAmory.com, SHAMORY. So that's where you can buy the book or the game.
And that's not because of shamans, right? That's because of SHA-256, right?
Exactly. So it's a combination. So in Bitcoin mining, SHA-256 is the algorithm that's used. So that's the SHA. And then Mori is the end of the game memory. So like I said, the game's played like that. So we just mashed the words together, is where the name came from. But yeah, so we have the book with the game, and we also partnered with another awesome kids product in this case called Sats Ledger. And so it's a nice kind of ledger device if you maybe are giving your kids allowance in Bitcoin or things like that. So we are able to resell their product through our website as well. So that's available. Grab all three. It's called our mega bundle. But that's the website. And then Twitter is where we're most active. Play SHAmory is the handle. It's also on Instagram and Facebook if you guys are on those platforms. And then myself, I'm Scott M. Sibley on Twitter. DM's open everywhere. Website contact form. So you'll find us. Mallory's not on Twitter, so you can work to her through me.
She's lucky. She's lucky to not be on Twitter. It's a dangerous place out there. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And, I look forward to seeing what you guys have coming and cooking in the future.
Of course. No, thanks.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.